In this video, we're going to focus on how we can make our background range or the scale range here adjustable. But while we adjust it, you can see the color or the background color range stays on its position related to that. And if you can see, I can change this again, and we can just go up and down here, and even of course here we can increase this, but that should not be. It should be like this. There we are. So we can start to play around with it more and more. So let's start to look how we can create this nice dynamic structure here. So let's start to look how to make the background color range dynamic with a changing X scale in Chart.js. So what we're going to do here first of all is to get our default code, which is on chartjs3.com, that's specifically getting started. If you are on this link here, you can find the link here, and the link is as well in the description box. So once you click on that and you're on the site, scroll down and copy this entire chunk of code here. Let's copy that, and if you want to understand what this code does, make sure you watch this video here. So then I'm going to just paste this in here and cut out the title here and move the title in there. Save, refresh. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change this into a line chart because it's probably more applicable for a line chart. Line chart, and just make it like this. Remove that one, save, refresh. So now we have a line chart here. What I want to do is I want to extend the amount of items we have here. So I'm going to extend this. I'll just paste it 1, and then that's 1 and 2. So that's a total of 21 data points. And here same as well, 1 and 2, save, refresh. So now we have a huge amount of data points here. So then what I'm going to do here is on the X scale, I'm going to play around a bit, and I'm going to say here, the minimum will be set on 0, comma, and then the max will be set, well, we can put 20, because we're working with an array here, but let's say here 10. Save this, refresh. And of course, you forgot to put a comma here, or I forgot. Save that, refresh, there we are. So now we have 10, or not even 10 data points, but 11, because we're working with the index 0, so 11 items in here. And that's this here. So now what I want to do is I want to make sure that we can play around with this scale here. So in here, I'm just going to make something very, very simple. I'm going to make a very basic structure. Let's say here, scale range. Say a scale min. And then we're going to say here input, and then type type is a number. Name could be anything here. Let's say here min, but I won't be using this one. I'll just use an ID. That's easier. And what I'm going to say here is scale min. That's the ID name. And then the value, I'll make sure the value is consistent with what we already have set here down, which is this. I'll just say it's 0. Then I will copy this. Enter, paste, say here max, just min, and here max, scale, max, and this will be 10. Alright, so now we have this matching with this, that's fine. And eventually what I want to do is if I go up or down until I hit 0, I want to see the range or here completely whatever is still missing here. So let's start to do that right now. So to do this, we have this here. I'm going to create now a small function here, simple function. First of all, I'm going to say a constant, and I'm going to say here the name of the ID, scale min. Say equal document dot get element, oh, not by tag name, by get element by ID. Put in that, alright. And then I want to copy this because I want another one, but then for the max. And quite useful that our names are exactly consistent and very consistent on that. But then what I'm going to do here is to create a add event listener. So I'm going to say here, when we change something in scale min, so I say scale min dot add event listener. And then what is the triggering? So we trigger a specific function if, well, we can say here in this case, if there's a change in the value, put a comma here, then register the event here. So then, if this happens, what I want to do here is I want to say scale range as a function is being triggered. So now I'm going to create a quick function here. It's called scale range. Very straightforward, nothing fancy. And let's do here console log and say here min, or well, min doesn't work because we're going to trigger them. This is on min. What I want to do is as well on max. So I will do here 2 times min or max. If one of these two are adjusted, it will trigger here. Let's say here yes. Save, refresh, open up. Oh, I don't want that. Sorry. Open up developer tab. Let's refresh this and say here go up. You say yes, yes, and then here of course same story. So basically it recognizes both of them. So what I want to do here then is eventually to create a function where we're going to update these two values. So what I'm going to say here, I'm going to say here my chart dot, and then we're going to say here config. If you're wondering why, from my chart to config, which is basically this here, then to options, scales, x, and then min or max. So in this case, my chart dot config dot options dot scales x, am I correct? Options dot scales dot x dot min equals whatever the value is on scale max. So we don't know yet what the value is. So if I do this, click here and say dot value, we should be able to extract this value here. There we are. And this one of course doesn't work because it doesn't know at all, or it says scale min and max. So if I have another one with the max, it will grab that one as well. Let's confirm that, save, refresh. This, there we are. Alright, so we have this here. So then what we can do here is very straightforward. Grab the scale min, put in here. So we'll update it with whatever the value would be there. Plus, I'm going to do the same here except for the max, and the scale is max, scale max. So then, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say here my chart dot update, save, refresh. So now if I go here, number 1, nope. Alright, so what happens here, and this is a nice one. So you can see here it suddenly changed, the scale changes here because this here is considered a string value. So what we need to do here is specify it. We're going to say parse int to convert the value that we have from our input into a numeric value. Save this, save that. Now we should have the expected response. There we are. So that's the first one. Of course, this has nothing to do yet with our background color. So now we're going to work on the background color. And for that, I need to create a plugin. So we have here the options, comma, let's say plugins. And then here, let's call this our BG range or background color range. Save that or copy this. Then we're going to say here, this will be our plugin block. Then we're going to say constant background color range ID equals this, and this will be later on important. And now we're going to say here, when are we going to draw a background color? I want to draw it before the lines have been drawn, meaning that the background color will be behind these lines. So we will say here before the data sets draw. So before the data set has been drawn, we're going to draw our background color. And we're going to use 3 arguments, chart, arcs, and let's call this plugin options. So this is regarding to timing. So then what I'm going to do here is now the object destructuring, so constant. And if you want to understand what is object destructuring, I have a video explaining this in detail. So I will recommend you to watch that video if you don't understand what I'm doing here. It's in the description box. You can find it as well. So I'm going to do here the object destructuring. I'm going to get CTX. I'm going to get what more? We might need the chart area. Again, here, if you want to understand what is chart area, check in the description box the other recommended videos. Chart area, I'm going to say top, bottom, left, right, width and height. Then we have a comma, and then we have the scales, and then this here, x and y, although I think we only need the x variable because we're going to work with the horizontal scale. So, alright, I don't want that. Save this. We don't need to refresh here, of course. So now we can start to draw. So I'm going to say ctx.save to save all variables above. And I'm going to say ctx. And then what I want to do here is I'm going to say ctx.fill style, and let's get a nice color that we can use here. So what I will do is, maybe a suitable one is the black one. I'm going to put in here the blackish color or the darkish color. It's not really black, it's transparent black. It's basically this, that black here, that one, but that's alright. So then I'm going to say here CTX, and I'm going to say here fill rectangle, and the fill rectangle covers the shape of the item. So what I want to do is I want to draw here, and let's start with the basics. So we have here an X variable and the Y variable, which is basically horizontal and the vertical, based in pixels, X and Y coordinates, which is basically starting from here. This is 0, and if I go to the right side, it is increasing in value, and same with down. Up is 0, down is the height of whatever the height would be, in this case 280. And it is dynamic because if we expand it or close this, the chart becomes bigger. Anyway, so this is the width, and that's the height. That's the one we have here. So we have some values here. What I want to do is, when we select a certain value, and I realize we forgot to create a range for that, let's do that one first. Let's add that. I'm going to just duplicate this here. I'm going to say here HR or a horizontal line. Paste that, and this will be BG scale or BG min, BG max. And then here, let's make this simple, BG and BG. And this will be eventually 5 and 7. I'll just put in that one, and later on we're going to work on that. Nothing happens yet, of course. It's not yet done here. And you might say, why do we get an error? Because here we didn't complete something. These variables here are not being recognized. That's how you get this error. So anyway, we're going to get here, and what I make here, what I will do here, I just do 0. Let's say height is 100, and I'm going to say the width will be 100, and then again the height will be 100 from that point. Basically, I'm going to create a square here. Save, refresh. There we are. Alright, so now we have this. But what I want, of course, is based on whatever the range is here. So how do we do that? Well, we need to figure out our starting point. So the starting point, we're going to use this specific command. We're going to say X for the X scale, and then I'm going to use a command that Chartjs has built in. So I say here dot get the pixel for value, and the value would be whatever the value is. In this case, I'm going to match the value with whatever we had assigned here, 5 and 7. I'm going to say here 5, and then here we want to start at the very top and then all the way going down. How do we do that? Well, we can get here the top pixel, because that will be for the chart area the top line. So I'm going to say here this, and then also for the bottom, which is oh no, sorry, not the bottom, but we're going to get here the height. The height would say how many pixels would be this point to that. So that's why we have the height here. That is basically the bottom point of this, but it's not this variable here. That's different. For that, I recommend you to watch the video chartArea. Alright, so we have this one here, and let's put this in here as well. If I put in this here, you'll see this will not give you the desired effect if you say number 7, because that will be the most logical one. But if you do this, we get far more than what we wanted. We want to have from here to there. So we have only 2 items here. Remember what I refer to with this value here, or the third value. This one is the width, and the width would mean if you say number 7, it's basically here, but it will calculate this, how many pixels, and all these values in pixels will be added up here. So that is a problem for us. So what we need to do is we need to deduct that. We need to deduct the pixel structuring of this, because what we need to know is how many pixels is from this point to here. Because what we get is if we say number 7, we get this pixel amount to there, and that would be, let's say, well, 200, 300. We can just export that. Let's say console log, put in that. There we are, and then open up the console log. That is 480, or let's say 490 pixels. So there's far too many pixels here. So probably we need about maybe, let's say here, I guess 50 pixels. So I'm going to show you how we can calculate that. If I say that 100 pixels, well, close, 150, 40 pixels maybe. There we are. Alright, so we have to calculate it. So how do we calculate this? Well, we need to calculate this point, and then we deduct it from whatever was the starting point. If the starting point is 5, so basically 7 minus 5, then you have the difference between that is eventually the pixel amount we need to know. So what we're going to do here, and then I'll show you, that's basically this 7 minus this 5. We save that and refresh. We can check now. You get about 131, which is quite close, or which is correct because we were quite close by 140. So if I do this, just copy this, put that in here, save, refresh. Alright, that looks already much better. And although I don't like even the background, I think the background should be a nice color. But anyway, doesn't matter. What we're going to do now is let's remove this console, save. What I want to do now is I want to make this more dynamic. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we're going to make sure we have this here. These are already done, alright, so we don't have to do much for that. But what we need to do now is this reference needs to be referred to somewhere. And we could say here and get specific IDs, but I don't want to do it like that. What I want to do is I want to do it professionally by using a min and max within the configuration. So what I'm going to do here is the following. In here, in the options, I'm going to say enter. I'm going to say plugins. And we're going to say here our new plugin that we just created. So what is the name of this plugin? You will say this, but no, the answer is basically this one here, the ID. That is the object name. That's what we're going to use. So then within here, we can now say min, and min would be, for example, 5. When we say max, and max will be 7. That's what we had indicated previously. So now, how do we assign this to there? Alright, so what I'm going to do here is the following. You can see here this, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say here, plugin options, make sure you spell this correctly, without with properties spelled with the N. So it's a plugin options. Basically, if we understand, it refers to the options plugins, and then basically here the background color, which is this here. So and then I'm going to say here dot min, referring to this specific value. So I'm going to grab this or this point here, and every number 5 will be converted to that. The next number 7 will be converted to max. Plugin options max. If I save this, let's see if this works. Refresh, you can see it visually nothing changes, but behind the scenes we have changed a lot. So this works. So now what I want to do, I want to scroll down here and I want to create now a more dynamic item, because right now this is working, as you can see, it's moving, but I want to also control this. So we have this fully controlled as well. So to do that, what I'm going to do here is we can just, I guess we can duplicate it almost, but I will not do that. I will just look what's the name here above. But it's the same methodology. So bgmin. So then let's go back here. Constant bgmin, and then we say document dot get element by ID, which is the background min, and of course constant bg max, which is the other one. Get element. We can just duplicate this. Let's say here max. Capital M, I add it like that. Alright, so then what we can do here is, well, we can delete this. And the scale range, I'll just almost copy this, but then here, instead of scale range, I will say here BG range. So then background range, and then here, of course, this is not this item here, no. I guess we can delete this. Maybe we just have to delete this all. We can say here my chart dot. Where are we going? We're going here. Also to config, to options, plugins, background color range. So I'm going to say here config.options.plugins. What's the plugin name? Background color range. Dot, and then in this case, here we have to check on that, min. Then we're going to say equal parse int to convert it into a variable or numeric value. And I'm going to say here what was the item, bg min dot value. If you grab this, we should get the value, and then I'm going to duplicate this, put it in there, but then I'm going to say here this will be not min, but it will be max value, bg max dot value. Alright, so once we have this, save that. Then let's see, do we have it as expected? I think we're done here. Oh sorry, no, of course not. The reason why is I forgot to create an add event listener, because right now we didn't trigger it yet. So what I'm going to do here now is we can just say copy this, go to paste, we'll make 2, scale min and max. Well, I want to say here now bg min for that. And this will trigger not the scale range, no, it will be the background range. And then here, BG max will be the background range as well. Save, refresh. Then change this. Alright, change that. Then change this. There we are. There we are. There we are. Go back here. And then, of course, -0 will not work anymore because the array only starts with 0. That makes sense. Let's say here, maybe we can increase this. Then only thing here, of course, we should probably put a block on here. Minimum or max value would be equal to this. So that will make sense. But of course, I will not focus too much on that for now here. Most important is to show this working model here. And if you would say, well, what about colors? We could do color as well. Let's say here, I'm going to show you a simple way. And of course, you can make a drop down out of it if you want to. You see this here. Alright, I'm going to cut out this. And I'm going to say here, plugin options dot bg color or background color. Let's make this full out. Spell that correctly. Background color. So then in here, comma, background color, and let's do a nice one. Let's grab this reddish color. I like that color a lot. Copy that and put it in there, comma, save. And alright, so what happened here? Background color, something didn't work out as expected. Plugin options, and plugin options must be, of course, spelled correctly. Plugin without the S, your plugin options. So if I save this, refresh, there we are. Now we have changed this. This moves there, that moves that. Beautiful. And this is basically the way how you can play around and make it more and more dynamic in Chart.js. So if you enjoyed this video and maybe you want to do even something more advanced and I guess more colorful as possible, there's another one I highly recommend you to explore, which is, that's this one here. That's this video here, which is absolutely amazing because here you will get this animated colors. Basically, it's a loop in colors, which you could make the background color even far more fancy. Although I would not probably recommend too much of this because it can be very distracting, but it can make it very eye-catchy.